Hello, this is James Kelly, and welcome to James Kelly Speaks. In the last video, I went through the hypercortisolimic wound and went through a little bit of understanding how stress hormones physically affect the brain. What I'm about to do now is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the behaviors, but I want to do a little bit of a recap. So, narcissistic defense mechanisms are certainly a part of the behavioral expression of that kind of damage. Now, one of the things I've been able to do is to work through some of the numbers that have been done in some of the other studies to identify that there are a tremendous number of people that are being affected by this. And certainly as people age, we start to see that, things like Time Magazine, the Me, Me, Me generation, millennials, they're lazy, they're entitled, narcissists, etc. There's a growing awareness that there's more of this going on, but there's a fundamental lack of understanding as to what's driving it. So, 63% of the children in this country today are either directly alienating a parent to some degree or watching a sibling do it. And children deserve to be protected in their right to freely and appropriately love and be loved by both parents. These are the numbers, and I did the work off of Dr. Jennifer Harmon's study on the prevalence of parental alienation, where she focused on adults and identified that 9.03% of the adults in the population are affected to some degree, half mildly, half moderately, and severely. You will see that number right here. What I did was, that number wasn't a useful number to me, so I went back and did the math using U.S. Census.gov numbers, where 24% of the population in 2010 were under 18. In 2016, it was 22.8. And of course, it was about 23% here, and I'm approximating at 22.4 there. So you'll see all the math here. You can follow it through. You can do it yourself, and you can verify it. And it was a shocking 62.57 that I rounded to 63%. This is how I arrived at that number. So in the last video, I showed the relationship between the glucocorticoids or stress hormones and health. This should be the population here, the normal distribution of the population with eucortisolemic amounts of stress hormones here. However, there's no study that identifies this curve, not anywhere in endocrinology, and it doesn't control for the adverse childhood experiences that might lead to a stressed population. In fact, if you look at the ACE study that shows a dose-dependent adverse health relationship between childhood trauma, which is stressful, and poor health, it goes right in line with that particular part of the curve, which is what makes sense to me and what jumped out at me as being causal for that landmark study from 1998 that has not been adequately studied subsequent in terms of glucocorticoid neurotoxicity. So, moving on to the narcissistic defense mechanisms. In order for a person using these mechanisms to use them effectively, there are rules, and they typically have 7 rules. When it's a situation of parental alienation, it's don't talk to the other parent, don't trust the other parent, don't have positive feelings for the other parent, don't remember the other parent, don't resolve any conflict that you feel about this, and don't touch the other parent, and certainly don't have boundaries with me. Well, these are the 7 rules. If you break these rules and you find acceptance, that's a healthy relationship. If you break these rules and these 4 things that are only yours to control, someone else tries to control, well, that's a big red flag. And that is what you choose to perceive or think about, what you choose to say or not say, what you choose to do or not do, and how you choose to feel. So, if you break these rules and you are accepted and nobody tries to control these 4 items, then that's a healthy relationship. However, if you're finding that somebody is trying to control these four things, that's not healthy. So, one of the things that you need to understand if you find yourself in that situation, which is certainly painful, is that there are four types. Now, we're going to look at the physical pain here first. And if I said that somebody was going to take a knife to you or to one of your loved ones, that's probably the image that would come to mind first. And of course, that's injurious. And the threat response, the amygdala gets involved. And that's where your mind goes. However, this guy could be the guy taking the knife to you, and it could be a life-saving procedure. So it's important to understand the context of the pain. Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it injurious, or is it healing? When you're dealing with the narcissistic defense mechanisms, you're experiencing emotionally injurious pain. You're going to, at some point, need to process that pain. And what this slide says, if you can't see it, is some people think that to be strong is to never feel pain. However, the strongest people are the ones who have felt pain, understood it, accepted it, and learned from it. And one of the things we need to realize as parents is that it is not our job to prevent our children from having pain. It is our job to help them understand the four types of pain and how to process that pain. So, I want to get into that in just a little bit more, but it's important to understand what some of these techniques are that are used to psychologically manipulate or control you. And one of the things that's not listed on this list is gaslighting, which is absolutely important. Now, this happens to be a great reference. It is from Wikipedia. It is cited directly from George K. Simon in Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People. So a quick, non-comprehensive list of psychological manipulation techniques that you ought to be able to recognize and deal with. Lying by admission, denial, rationalization, minimization, deflection, diversion, evasion, covert intimidation, guilt trips, shaming, vilifying the victim, wielding the victim role, wielding the servant role, seduction, projecting blame, feigned innocence, feigned confusion, brandishing anger, peer pressure. Some of the other ones that I would suggest also exploring, and I'm not going to go into them in detail here because I like to do these videos short, but psychological projection, absolutely a must to understand that. The reverse blockade, I will deal with that one a little bit because that is hard to find. That is when somebody says the exact opposite of what is true, and a logical third person figures that the truth is somewhere in the middle of the two people, can't make sense out of it, and moves on, which is exactly what the manipulative person is looking to do. So, that is certainly part of it. The other one that's missing from here is stonewalling. Stonewalling is a popular technique. So, these are all techniques that you should look into individually on your own, learn them, understand them, recognize them. Now, healing. Healing from this is a process, and it's one that you're going to have to go through if you've been an alienated parent. No contact or gray rock, absolutely essential because you need to reduce your exposure to stress hormones. And if you've been going through this, you've been going through prolonged exposure to stress hormones. Cognitive, you need to clearly understand what has happened. I'm going to help you with that. Emotionally processing the trauma. Learning that feeling the emotional pain will not hurt you, but avoiding it might. Processing the original trauma, which may have been in childhood. Healing those triggers. Break those buttons that they push. Behavioral. Learning to identify the narcissistic defense mechanisms that we just covered and not use them yourself. And to process stress close to when it happens. You may not be able to do it right away, but to be able to process it close to when it happens. Exposure. Intentionally re-exposing yourself to triggers in order to verify and practice your new behaviors. Sharing. This is critical. This is what it's about. Sharing these methods with others and hopefully being a light for the alienating adult children that may not be your own or the parents that are alienated, so that when the time comes for you to face your own alienating children, you can love them through the narcissistic defense mechanisms that they will challenge you with, rather than to counter-reject them by using no contact or gray rock techniques. I want to thank you very much. I do truly appreciate you liking this, subscribing to this channel, sharing this, liking my Facebook group, Petition to Scientifically Study Title IV and the Harm That It Causes Children. It's a long name, far too long for me to remember. So if you type that in, you'll certainly understand that. You may see this. You may see this from that particular page as well. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to helping you understanding more about parental alienation and the actual mechanism that happens from the child's perspective in the coming videos. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.